Coach Leftwich kind of talked about one of the things you're working on right now is drifting in the pocket. Can you tell me what you've been doing in the past few days and just kind of what you assess from your own tape?
Yeah, we got a really good up front O line, so I just got to be more comfortable in the pocket. I tend to drift to just let plays develop longer rather than just sitting in there and being comfortable. They've done a great job protecting me, so this week is going to be a real big emphasis of up in the pocket rather than drifting back in the pocket. So good things come up in the pocket. So yeah, just trying to work on that this week.
Is there any specific drill y'all run to keep you from drifting?
Yeah, we call it the up and under drill. Once you get the wide nines, you get some defensive ends that are really far outside, that allow the pocket to move up in the pocket. So, Coach Lindsey and Coach Leftwich will do a great job this week of, giving me drills throughout the week of, forcing me up in the pocket to create, plays downfield.
And then there's a lot of noise around this game, but there's also a lot of NFL scouts. And with this being your legacy year, is there anything, I guess, you're wanting to put on tape, that game specifically?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I just want to win the game. It's a big game because we're in it, and I think this is a big test for the team. I think we're really prepared and dialed in for this week. We're excited, and it's gonna be a fun game.
I guess on that note, just as the team leader, how has this non-conference schedule, now that you're through it, gotten you ready to start league play as a top 25 team going against the top 25 team just in Utah on the road? What's been your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what you dreamed of doing when you're a little kid. This is the moment now. All the chips are on the table. Conference play, let's go do it. It's been good getting a couple games underneath our belt. Got some confidence rolling into it. The guys are fired up. It's an early kick too, so that's going to be good. But I'm excited about the atmosphere. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You talked about on Saturday how this O-line, you've been hearing them talk more than any other O-line you've been a part of. Can you talk about a specific instance where you've noticed that in a game?
Yeah, I think, just as far as when we're coming off the field and, we score a touchdown, they're very level-headed. They're wanting what's the next play of the first drive. They're asking me, what are we going to do on this drive? We're going to be a lot of tempo, you think? What do we like up front? Just to have those guys being that engaged and locked in the game, it's taken our offense to the next level, of being so, good out of the backfield with our running backs, being good up front with the run game, but then also the pass pro. The communication part they've done a tremendous job of that.
You're a seasoned Big 12 quarterback. Our fans get pretty rowdy here, but for guys who haven't been on a road environment where they get rowdy too, what's your message for them?
Yeah, Coach is gonna. I know he already said that we're gonna be in the indoor this week, pumping loud crowd music in there. But man, it's fun. Just to walk into place and to shut their fans up and play our brand of football. It's a lot of fun. The juices are flowing, anxiety's going. It's a lot of fun, and for guys like Terrence Carter that probably hasn't played in another stadium that isn't rooting for him with 50,000 people in it. So it's gonna be a lot of fun for those guys to see different atmospheres in the Big 12.
Behren, I know it's a little bit different. Non-conference, you take these road trips where you haven't played a team before. Tech hasn't played this team since the 1970s. So what are some of the things you've kind of taken away from playing some of these Pac-12 teams that join the league on the road, and what are you kind of trying to use those situations to apply to this one, playing them for the first time?
Yeah, going back to Washington State last year in that game, the atmosphere is awesome. College football is loved all around the world. So, it's going to be a really, really fun game. I think it's going to be a really physical game. I'm trying to tell our guys this week that, once we start fast and we get on them, just to keep them underwater. And, I think that the guys have done a great job the last 3 weeks of doing that. But, a tougher opponent this week. We got to be able to run the ball to establish a good run game up front, just so they can load the box up and we can get, isolations outside with our playmakers.
Just building off of that, obviously experienced quarterback, you're playing an unfamiliar opponent with the scouts being there and all that. How are you handling this kind of pressure?
Yeah, I see pressure as an opportunity, and this team has a big target on our back. So at the end of the day, my job is just to get us to play our brand of football, and I'm going to do the best thing I can do this week to get our team prepared to play. But I don't see it more as a pressure. I see it just as an opportunity to have an elite game with the guys I love.
Don Collier.
Behren, Utah has a defensive end that has 5 sacks. John Henry Daly. From what you've seen of him on film, does he tend to line up on the same side most of the time, or and what does he look like to you?
Yeah, their whole entire defensive line, they do a good job of getting guys open with the amount of stunts and things they do up front. But at the end of the day, we gotta create a run mentality. We got to be able to run the ball on them because when we run the ball on them, they're going to want to load more people in the box. It's going to create better matchups outside for us. But without the run game, I don't think we're going to be able to do much. So we got to establish that run game for sure.
A few minutes ago, you mentioned Lindsey Scott. Since it was only very few years ago, he was throwing 60 touchdown passes himself. Have you seen him move around, air it out much, just in practice, messing around?
Yeah, no, he actually helps us out a lot because Coach Leftwich has a lot on his plate. But to have Coach Lindsey in that room, throwing 62 touchdown passes in this offense, he knows his offense like the back of his hand. So, we come off the sideline, we have the iPad. Coach Leftwich will walk through it, and then Coach Lindsey will take over and just kind of calm the nerves down. He's been there, he's done it. He's been such a tremendous help for our quarterback room as far as like game playing, notes, what to see pre-snap, little keys. But he's been a big help for us.
Have you seen any of his film, any of his playing film?
Yes, yeah. I mean, all the install cut-ups that we see every week when we were first putting the offense in were, Texas State, and then, obviously all the stuff that, Lindsey got to do at Incarnate Word with him too.
Coach Leftwich mentioned yesterday that he didn't think he had used the tight end as much as he did in that last game. How easy has it been to get the ball to Terrence, and what has impressed you about his play after 3 games?
Yeah, there's a lot to say about him, but he's explosive. To be that big and to line him up in the slot with, another, we have Reggie, Coy, TC, and then CD, and then it's, if we want to get into 2 tight end sets, you got JC too, but to have that ability to widen a tight end out wide, we haven't been able to do that for a while, but it's been, he's so explosive. You don't see that kind of big guy move like that fast, and so he's done a great job with it mentally too. He knows the what we're going to do throughout the week on Monday. He knows he's locked in. He's helping the other guys out too. He's a really mature guy, which I think that's just going to levitate his game to the next level.
Don mentioned the defensive line. What do you know about their secondary and what problems they could pose for you guys as well?
Yeah, it's a vet room. Guys coming back that have played a lot of football. So I think it's going to be an awesome matchup for our team. I think this is a big test of, the measuring stick of the Big 12. Two teams that have played well early. Meeting up for a top 25 matchup. Big noon kickoff. This is kind of the things that you wanted, and they got a great defense. But we have a great offense, and Coach Leftwich is going to have a great scheme. It's going to be a great week of prep. And get those guys rolling on the road.
Talking about coaches who formerly played, do you ever run routes or throw routes to Xavier White still?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I just got a memory of us a couple years back, and it was me and X at the Raider Walk, and I'm like, man, it's crazy now that he's coaching and I'm still walking on the Raider Walk. It's pretty cool to have X there. Same thing, when we come off the sideline, Juice will talk to the receivers, but X kind of gets the receivers around and just really helps them just calm nerves and settle them down. But X White has been a great help on staff.
Is he fully committed to wanting to pursue a coaching career, or is he trying to get back into
Yeah, as far as I believe, I'm sure he's fully committed to the coaching route right now.
With you having a healthy shoulder now, are there still things now that you're in game action where you're still kind of feeling out like, oh, I have this zip, so I can take a little bit off if I need to, that sort of thing?
Yeah, for sure. This is the most healthy I've been up top in a really long time. So, yeah, it has been different. Being able to get the ball out on time, anticipating throws that I know I can make now, pushing the ball down the field, extending plays outside the pocket and then pushing the ball down the field. I think that's been the biggest difference. We've done a great job of scramble drill. We worked that a lot. So just as the season goes, you just kind of pick up new things that you like, that you do. I've been really pleased with it so far.
All right, thank you, Behren.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Behren.
Thank y'all.